Hey everyone and welcome. Today we're going to break down one of the most common, and let's be honest, one of the most confusing medical reports you'll ever get a look at, your lipid profile. We're going to make sense of every single number on that page together.
You know that feeling? You get your results back, you look at this page full of acronyms and numbers, and it feels like you're trying to read a foreign language. If that's you, you are definitely not alone. But what are these numbers actually trying to tell you about your health?
So here's a really simple way to think about it. Imagine your lipid profile is the daily traffic report for your body's highways, and those highways are your arteries. It tells us what kind of cars are on the road, how crowded it is, and if there are any pileups that could cause some serious trouble down the line.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with what this traffic report is even looking at. Then we'll meet the main players, the good guys and the bad guys. After that, we'll get to know the supporting cast, uncover some sneaky hidden risks, and finally, we'll pull it all together to see how doctors read this map to keep your highways flowing smoothly.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. What is this test actually looking for?
At its core, a lipid profile is just a blood test. It's designed to measure the fats or lipoproteins that are cruising around in your bloodstream. These are the vehicles in our traffic analogy. And the whole point is to figure out your risk of cardiovascular disease, which is really all about preventing traffic jams in those critical arteries. All right, let's meet the two most famous characters in this entire story, the hero and the villain. You've definitely heard of good and bad cholesterol, but let's get crystal clear on what they actually do. So, on the left, we've got our villain, LDL cholesterol. This is the bad guy because it's the particle that literally causes plaque to build up inside your arteries. It creates those traffic jams we're trying to avoid. So for LDL, it's simple. The lower that number, the better. Then on the right, we have our hero, HDL cholesterol. This is the good guy because it acts like a fleet of tow trucks, driving around, grabbing excess cholesterol, and hauling it back to the liver to be disposed of. For HDL, the opposite is true. The higher, the better. So if there's one number to really pay attention to, it's this one. For people who are at high risk for a heart attack or a stroke, the goal is to get their LDL level under 1.8 millimoles per liter. Now, the units on your report might look different, but this target is the single most important number that doctors are focused on when it comes to treatment. And this brings us to a really fascinating point in medicine. We've got amazing drugs like statins that are fantastic at lowering the bad LDL cholesterol, and no question, they save lives. But here's the twist. While having a naturally high HDL is a good thing, all the drugs we've developed to artificially raise HDL, well, they haven't actually prevented more heart attacks. And that's exactly why the focus is almost always on crushing that villain, LDL.
But wait, the story doesn't just stop with LDL and HDL, not even close. There's a whole supporting cast of characters on your report that gives us a much richer, more complete picture of what's happening.
Let's meet three of the big ones. First up, triglycerides. Just think of these as fat that your body stores for energy. Levels can get pushed way up by things like diabetes or even drinking too much alcohol. Next is non-HDL cholesterol. This one's a simple calculation, but it's super useful. It's your total cholesterol minus your good HDL. What's left is a measure of all the bad guys, all the potentially harmful particles, bundled into one number. And finally, apolipoprotein B, or ApoB. This is like doing an exact head count of every single bad guy particle. Because of that, a lot of experts now think it might be the best predictor of your risk, even better than LDL.
I want to hit pause on triglycerides for just a second, because this is absolutely critical. Yeah, moderately high levels are a long-term risk for your heart, but extremely high levels, and we're talking over 10 millimoles per liter, that creates a clear and present danger. It can trigger a really painful medical emergency called pancreatitis, which is a severe inflammation of your pancreas.
Okay, so we've met the main vehicles on our traffic report, but what if the traffic looks fine on the surface, but there are hidden dangers lurking on the road? This is where we need to bring in the special agents.
And this is a hugely important question, because you can have a perfect LDL, a great HDL, but other things could be quietly ratcheting up your risk behind the scenes. So let's look at two key tests that help us uncover these hidden threats.
First, there's lipoprotein A, which we call Lp(a). This is a special kind of bad cholesterol that's extra sticky. The most important thing to know about it is that your level is pretty much set by your genes. If it's high, that's a major red flag for heart disease, especially earlier in life. Second is HSCRP. This test isn't measuring cholesterol at all, it's measuring inflammation. Think of it as measuring the fire inside your arteries that can make plaque grow.
And this is why knowing your LPA is such a potential game changer.
Unlike your regular LDL, this number comes from your parents, and standard statin drugs don't budge it. So if you find out your LPA is high, it means you and your doctor have to get way more aggressive about controlling every other risk factor that you possibly can.
Okay, so we've got all these different numbers. We've met all the players. Let's pull it all together and see how a doctor actually uses this information to make a plan.
First things first, let's bust a huge common myth. For decades, we were all told you have to fast before a cholesterol test. Well, the new guidelines from major health organizations now say that for most people, fasting is optional. Why the big change? Well, doctors figured out that making people wait for a special fasting test just delayed getting them on treatment. Turns out, not fasting only barely nudges the triglyceride number, while the really critical ones, like LDL and non-HDL, stay pretty much accurate.
So here's a simplified version of how a doctor might think through your results. Step 1. Look at the LDL. Is the main villain under control? Step 2. Check the non-HDL cholesterol. This gives a great overview of the total risk, especially if you didn't fast. Step 3. Evaluate the triglycerides. Are there clues about lifestyle, or are we anywhere near that pancreatitis danger zone? And finally, Step 4. In some cases, it's time to bring in the advanced tests, ApoB, LPA, HSCRP, to get the deepest possible dive into someone's true risk.
And that's a wrap. You now basically have the decoder ring for your own lipid profile. You know the heroes, you know the villains, and you know the secret agents. So the next time you see that report, it won't be a mystery. It'll be a story. The only question left is, what does your personal traffic report say about your journey ahead?